What's up, everyone? So, my name's Slender, and I am so excited to be able to bring you guys this information on this upcoming game, Ashes of Creation. So, today we're going to take a pretty deep dive into the combat systems, the way the targeting is going to work, and pretty much everything related with combat. Not specific skills and abilities, that'll be for another video, but, I get a lot of questions and a lot of people making comments saying things like, the game looks great. Everything looks amazing, but we haven't seen, the combat. Well, there is information out there, and I did a lot of digging for you guys, and this is all the information that I've compiled as far as what types of systems we're going to, expect, and, the type of combat that's going to be here in the game. Now, 95% of this information came from the live streams, straight from the live streams with Steve Sheriff, the creator, himself. And some of the information came from the wiki, some came from other videos, some came from, just different articles and, just doing a lot of research. So with that being said, this is still in development. So a lot of this stuff can and probably will change. So this is nothing set in stone. I just want to make sure you guys understand that any of this stuff can and most likely will change. But this is going to be the most updated information I could find for you guys. And, I hope you enjoy it. So let's take a look at combat in Ashes of Creation. All right, so Ashes of Creation combat. What's it going to be like? What kind of systems are they going to use? Well, they are going to be using a hybrid targeting system. So a mix between both tab targeting and action, type targeting or action camera, kind of like New World. And I think this is a pretty good decision because, they're going to kind of hopefully be able to combine, the best of both worlds. So this is a quote from Brees Royce, and I totally agree that a good combat system is one of the foundations to build your game on. And, combat can make or break the deal for sure, 100%. So one of the things that they said is combat in AOC is going to be focused on strategy and tactics. And they have a thing called time to kill, which we're going to get into later. And, to be honest, as with any game, combat has got to be amazing and feel amazing. And Steven's team knows this. Steven's the creator. It needs to feel responsive, mobile, and fluid. And he said it needs to give a feeling of satisfaction. That's what the sheriff himself said. And I agree. 100%. So like I said in the beginning of the video, some of the stuff is going to be recent. Some of the stuff is going to be Alpha 1. Some's going to be before Alpha 1. But this is all stuff that they have said, and I've tried to get the most recent information. So 2018, Steve said, we want combat to be engaging and fun. Right now, we've begun the sprint to Alpha 1. First phase deployment, so we're really looking into the action side of combat, and we're building systems for that. And the reason we're doing that is because tab targeting has been a staple of MMORPGs for a very long time. And even though there's interest now in action for MMORPGs, and there's been some successful titles with action-oriented combat like Terra and BDO, we want to be able to really delve into that development so that we can better understand how to merge tab and action together in the same game because they are vastly different playstyles. Now, like I said before, this game will be a hybrid between the two, tab target and action. And I really like this decision because it can cater to both types of players. There have been some amazing tab targeting games and some amazing action targeting games. And there have also been some really successful hybrids before. Honestly, I like both, but recently I've really been enjoying New World, and it's got action targeting. It's engaging. I love having to aim my heals, although healing in that game can be very frustrating and, definitely needs some tweaks. I actually use tab and action using my, group member hotkey to select the tank. That's, I guess, kind of like a hybrid system where you can, physically, aim your heals at the ground or at a player, but you can also hit a hotkey and just target somebody, kind of like tab targeting. And now that's a New World, and I'm just using that as an example, that the hybrid system can work. There's some great advantages with both systems. Action kind of feels, more engaging, but at the same time, tab targeting is also a very tried and true system that works. And, again, I think it's great that they're going to be implementing both. And like I said before, hopefully we get the best of both worlds. So the combat revamp they made around Alpha 1, what they wanted to accomplish with the revamp was to give more agency to the player and achieve a more fluid flow of combat with greater mobility when, using abilities, so you're not just stuck there. And what they mean by agency is systems that grow and shape player experiences in the game. Now, they specifically stated that the current hybrid, tab, and action combat will remain after the revamp, and the revamp will not represent the final form of combat, but will definitely set the general direction that combat will be taking. So one of the big changes, and one of the big things that they did during the revamp was introducing split body combat. And this is where the character's upper body can be locked by, weapon attack animations while the lower body is still free to keep moving. So something Steve said was, you'll be able to move forward while swinging your weapon, and this will allow you to have complete control over your weapon attacks, for melee. I mean, this is nothing new to, MMOs and different action games, but it's a new direction that they decided to go with, during the development process. I guess, I wasn't there during the really early iterations. I'm going to be there for Alpha 2, but, I don't know what they had. They must not have had that kind of system in the beginning, but thank God they're moving that way. So Alpha 1 combat was more focused on the core functionality rather than, combat balance. So not going to be seeing much of that. But Alpha 2 combat, and we're currently waiting, to get Alpha 2 access, will include archetypes such as, tank, fighter, rogue, ranger, mage, cleric, summoner, bards. They're going to add significant ability support, augments, like I said before, split body combat, weapon attacks, and many additional items, among other things. And that's going to be during the Alpha 2. Now, this next section on combat targeting is going to be really interesting. So if you weren't aware about this, you're going to be aware now. There's going to be not only air combat and, flying, but there's also going to be underwater combat. Now, I don't know how much this is going to be in the game, but it sounds amazing. It sounds ambitious and definitely, original and unique. But one of the big questions was, and this was on the last live stream back in May, I think, and that is attacking people while in the air and attacking people while underwater. You see, normally we're used to playing games on the ground, on dirt, just one plane, a horizontal plane. But this is going to introduce a new plane, a vertical or 3D plane, if you will. And somebody asked a question about targeting people with ground spells like a heal or an AoE while you're fighting in the air or underwater, and how you will be able to, manipulate the spells up and down or vertically to hit people that are higher or lower than you. A plane that we really aren't used to in MMOs like this. And Steve, the sheriff, said they're actually discussing and working on that very system, trying to find the best way to implement it, but it sounds like it's gonna actually be a thing. So I'm pretty excited to see what they're going to do, but also, a little nervous. He did mention briefly, just when he was shooting off ideas about using the middle mouse wheel, the scroll up and down. So kind of like the way you cycle through party members in the party frames in New World, with your mouse wheel, which is terrible, by the way. And using that to position your spells up and down in that vertical space. I mean, it sounds pretty cool. Just, imagine having a kind of vertical hitbox, if you will, for the ground spells, so you don't have to place it absolutely perfect, up and down to hit your targets. Or maybe, the players might actually have a little bit bigger of a hitbox themselves vertically. So, if you can try to picture it in your mind and actually see the hitboxes, you would see like a cylinder instead of just like a cube or a sphere around the player. You're going to see like a cylinder where the hitbox extends a little further, up and down, instead of equal on all sides. And, that would make it so that it's actually possible to, hit them with these ground spells while they're in the air or underwater if you're trying to heal them. Or, maybe when you're underwater or in the air, your heals will transform into more of a sphere, so they don't really have to adjust the hitboxes of the players, but they can adjust the area around the spells, the effective area. Instead of just a 2D, flat circle, they're going to have a 3D model. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird to explain, but all very interesting, and I can't wait to see what they actually do with this. So that's going to bring me to the next topic, which is combat targeting. So just to clarify again, hybrid refers to the choice between tab targeting and action targeted combat. So does that mean that, tab will be easier and, maybe action targeting would be harder but more fun and engaging? Maybe we'll see, some folks using tab during PvP, because you can lock on and action during PvE just to make it more fun, because it's going to be easier, fighting PvE enemies versus fighting, player enemies. Will we be able to choose between, action or tab on the fly? Or will certain abilities require, action target only, and vice versa, tab target only abilities? Well, most of those questions are going to be answered right now. So somebody actually asked, are you still considering whether the hybrid system will be replaced by tab only or action only? And Steve said no. I think that we will find a healthy medium between the two. So this is where it gets really, really interesting. So targeting modes are able to be achieved through choice of skills and abilities. So it may not be possible to be able to fully spec into just action or tab targeted skills. So it will be based on the skills. So what I don't know for sure is if it, some are going to be tab only, some are going to be, action targeted only. But what he said was something about there might be a 75% cap on choosing skills from any one type. But it gets even more interesting. So different ranks of the same skill can change the skill from tab to action or action to tab. So the action camera is going to be tied to the player's reticle, and there will likely be a hotkey that, when pressed down, will allow free camera movement. And they even said that later on we'll be able to change, what the reticle looks like. Maybe there's going to be different styles, different styles of crosshairs. But here's another interesting thing. Action-oriented and tab-oriented versions of skills will actually have different characteristics, and the variables will change based on which version is being or is chosen. So things like damage, charge up time, CC effects, cooldowns, mana or energy cost to spec, they can all vary based on whether action or tab is being used. Now, the only thing that would remain the same is the range. So, I was kind of thinking that, if you're using action, the action camera or action style targeting for a skill shot instead of tab, basically lock on, you'd have more range, but I guess not. So now they made this one thing very, very clear. And some of this info, the following info, hasn't been recently confirmed by the devs. And of course, this may change or may not even be on the roadmap. So I want to emphasize this was all confirmed, just not all of it was recent. So the reason they're setting, all these different requirements and characteristics for the skills is to try to balance them. For example, hard CCs like, straight up stuns may end up being action oriented because they are skill shots that are more difficult to land. So, in the May or June dev discussion, Steve did recently say that this is their philosophy, okay? And you're going to see this throughout a lot of the different discussions and a lot of the parts and aspects of the game. And that, my friends, is the risk and reward system, which I'm in love with. So, skill shots, although there's more risk of missing, will in return give you big benefits or rewards when hit versus no risk, tab targeted lock on, So, and another thing, this is not to do with combat, but raids that are not instanced and are openly, world PvP will give some of the best in slot stuff in the game. So you'll be rewarded if there's more risk. That's a recurring theme in this game. Now, I'm not sure where they're going to draw the line. Will you have to PvP in order to get the best? I doubt it. I think Steve is really doing a good job balancing that as well. And the game is all about balance. So back in the Alpha 1, hybrid combat was, was being tested. And the Z key, Z as in zebra, was used to switch between tab and action. So we will be able to switch, maybe. Remember, some of the stuff can change. And maybe all abilities will have, both modes, tab or action. So the action mode is going to utilize a reticle, and it's similar to like a third-person game. But you won't have to be in reticle mode to use an action combat ability. For example, if you're in tab target mode with no reticle, you can still just kind of aim and just eyeball the action ability. Now, you guys have no idea how bad I wish the Alpha 2 was right now, so I can actually show you guys some better in-game footage of what I'm trying to explain here. But I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot anyway. So the action abilities will not have a lock-on feature but by pressing Q while in action mode, it will lock onto the target to enable the use of tab-oriented skills while you're in action mode. And the reticle, when you're in action mode, will highlight and change to red when it, to indicate if the current target is able to be hit with the currently prepared skill. What they mean by currently prepared skill, I have no idea. I don't know how you're going to be preparing these skills, but that's what they said. So while holding tab while in action mode will alternate between targets, and pressing right click while in action mode will switch to the tab mode for the currently highlighted target. And a tab target ability will require a target in order to use that skill. So if you don't have a target highlighted or clicked on, you're not going to be able to use that tab ability. Pretty much like most other games that use tab targeting. And pressing left mouse button will attack the target with the currently selected weapon. And yes, there will be a target of target capability on the UI, and thank goodness for that. I love the target of target, so that you can see, who's this guy attacking? Is he attacking my healer? Well, we better focus him down. Man, I hope you guys can't hear me shuffling through my papers. Like, I took so many notes. I have pages and pages and pages from all the research I've done on this game, just that combat system alone. So we're going to talk about hitboxes. Now, the devs are testing different approaches to accommodate varying hitboxes between the different races. Now, there may be a single unified hitbox with some exceptions, or some special collision rules, as opposed to having different size hitboxes. There aren't going to be separate types of hitbox categories in the Ashes of Creation MMORPG like there were in the Ashes of Creation Apocalypse game. So for those of you who don't know, and this is actually a pretty big topic, and if you guys want to hear more about this, or you think it would be, a good informational video on kind of like a look at where they started, Ashes of Creation Apocalypse was a real game. So during the development process of Ashes of Creation, the MMO, they decided to put out a free-to-play, almost like a mini game or a spin-off of Ashes called Ashes of Creation Apocalypse. So personally, I think this was a pretty good or pretty cool idea. Some people didn't, some people hated it, but it allowed the team to put something out that, could really kill a couple different birds with one stone. So they're able to test the combat system and the mechanics and really get a lot of feedback, and also, see what works and how well the community received it, and, et cetera, et cetera. Well, according to the Steam charts, it didn't do that well, and they eventually just pulled the game from Steam. It did, however, give us an idea of, what direction they were going with the combat, and that's what you're watching right now. This is Ashes of Creation Apocalypse footage. So I don't know how true Ashes of Creation MMORPG is going to be to the Apocalypse footage you're watching right now, and how similar it's going to be, but I think it's going to be pretty similar. So it might be worth watching and looking up some of that Ashes of Creation Apocalypse, gameplay. And I think in Apocalypse, it was action targeting only, and they didn't even have any tab targeting, but, I don't know 100%. And again, I was thinking about making a video on just Ashes of Creation Apocalypse to get kind of a glimpse and a look at what the action is, because there's some really good footage out there. So let me know in the comments if you guys would like to see something like that. So back to hitboxes. Steve said there will not be separate hitboxes like for headshots and stuff like there were in Apocalypse. So there are going to be some big changes between the two. There will, however, be directional attacks. So there's going to be back attacks, there's going to be flanking attacks, and frontal attacks that will deal more damage depending on the positional context of the attack. So classes like the rogue class will generally have more of these. There's also going to be cleaving, so cleaving will be a thing in AOC. So all weapons will have a frontal attack cone, regardless of being in tab or action mode. But the cone's arc and the distance will vary based on the weapon type. So, I imagine things like the axe will have a wider and maybe a larger cone than a dagger or mace. Now this next part is actually pretty cool, and I'm excited about this, and we're going to talk about time to kill, or TTK. But remember, don't crucify me. I want to say again, this may not make it to the final product, but it was definitely mentioned. So TTK, or time to kill, means it will take approximately 30 seconds to a minute to kill your opponent. They actually have a time to kill window. Not meaning like there's going to be a timer or anything, but roughly, generally speaking, it should take around 30 seconds to a minute to kill your opponent. Steve said he does not want, headshots and one-shots to be a thing. And he really wants kills to be strategic and tactical. And I think that's awesome. It makes me very, very happy. So just a little snippet about gear inspection. So players will have a buff on their nameplate that indicates the gear set they're wearing. So other players will be able to see this buff by targeting that player at a distance. And this will indicate the type of armor, cloth, leather, or plate that they're predominantly wearing. Now this was discussed on a podcast in September 21, so pretty recent. So the border around the nameplate will indicate the quality of the tier set and if the gear is enchanted, but we're not going to be able to see like a list of the exact equipment or gear score because they think it may lead to, in parentheses, unwelcome behavior. So Steve said that when you see a player approaching you, you're going to be able to target them at a distance and they'll have a buff that's present on them that essentially indicates the piece set that they're wearing. And he said it's important for players to be able to ascertain from a threat standpoint, what you're going up against and if you're actively checking, and that will be available. So now a little bit about the mobility aspect. So skills with the greatest power, most damage, probably like ultimates, which there will be ultimates, will require you to be stationary. So those big damage skills will most likely be stationary. So this directly ties in with the risk versus reward mechanic I was talking about. And since the Unreal 5 update, there will be improved forms of moving, such as crouching, tilting, and mantling/climbing. He did say prone will probably not be in the game. And this was discussed in a December 2021 live stream. There will be several types of movement abilities, such as like blink, which we've all seen, kind of like a small teleport, jumps, dashes, sprinting, and rushing. Just a quick example of rush, and again, I'll cover more of this stuff in like the skills and abilities video, but rush towards a target, and upon reaching that target, deal an amount of damage and have a chance to knock the target down. So that would be considered like a rush ability. Kind of like charge, in New World. So a couple other small points of interest. Sprinting will consume mana and will most likely not be permitted while in combat. There will not be any type of auto pathing mechanic, but we will have an auto run toggle, thank God. There's going to be collision both for players and spells, and both inertia and momentum physics will help prevent like body blocking doorways and access points. This will be based on characters' direction and movement speed and can be used to push people out of the way, which is kind of cool. Instead of, just being able to stand there and block everybody from getting somewhere, you're going to actually be able to be pushed out of the way. And one more thing in the mobility department we haven't talked about is dodging. So what kind of dodging is going to be available in AOC? Now, all of this is subject to change, but so far there's going to be dodge rolling type skills that are going to be part of the action-oriented, targeting skills. And those are most likely only going to be available to the agile classes like rogues and fighters. However, the devs are considering including, dodging as a subset of universal skills that will be available to all classes instead of just having, certain abilities that might include a dodge roll. Now, I think they should make dodge a universal skill for everybody to, be able to do like most other games. I just don't really know how that's going to work with the tab targeting system, because with tab targeting, you're going to be able to lock on to different players. And how are you going to dodge out of something that's going to be a lock on unless you have iframes? And we'll talk about that here in a second. Now remember, as soon as we get Alpha 2 testing available, I'm going to be there and I'm going to document everything and show you guys what actually is on the table and where we're at today. I'm actually going to be saving some vacation time just for the Alpha 2. So yeah, Ashes of Creation, pretty special game. So back to dodging. They said that there will be iframes. So if you've ever wondered, what is an iframe, or you might have heard it talked about in other games, like you got to iframe that, you've got to iframe this, make sure you use your iframes. Iframe actually means invulnerability frame. And basically it's just a split second where no matter what hits you, you're not going to take damage because you dodged your time at that right second. So when you hit the dodge button, for like a split second, you're going to be invulnerable, or you're going to have iframes available. So even if, you know, the attack slams on the ground and you're literally standing there, as long as you hit dodge at the right time, you'll be immune to it and you will effectively, you know, dodge the ability. And that is going to be available in Ashes of Creation as of right now. And if you want to see, you know, more of what I'm talking about with iframes, New World is definitely a good game to, you know, get to see an example of what an iframe is, because we use them all the time. Now, I know I say this all the time and damn near every single one of my videos. I hope you guys don't start noticing a pattern here. But sorry for the long video. There's just a bunch of information. I wanted to make sure I covered it all. And, you know, there should be timestamps for you guys, so you don't have to read and watch, or not read, but watch the whole entire video. You could just skip to certain parts that you're interested in. So last thing I want to talk about is active blocking. So the devs have yet to finalize the designs for active blocking, but they are indeed considering and discussing internally with the combat team, and will definitely let us know when they have nailed down, you know, a few different approaches and prototypes. Hopefully this will be a thing in Alpha 2, and I'll be there to test it out and let you guys all know. But so far, it really seems like he's moving towards, you know, active blocking. So it'll be more engaging. You know, you won't just have a chance to block, or you won't have to activate a certain ability to block. Like some other games, you'll just have to block. It'll be one of those, you know, universal skills that everybody has, or at least maybe, you know, the tanks or melee classes. He didn't really say anything that I found, whether or not, you know, range or, you know, casters will be able to block. So who knows? Again, hopefully this will be in the Alpha 2 so we could find out for sure. And folks, that's going to do it for the combat systems in Ashes. And I really hope this video answered some questions you may have had as far as, you know, what the combat's going to be like and what systems they have and, you know, what we'll be using. So a couple things, please let me know what you thought of the video. And if you'd like to see more, and let me know all your thoughts, your concerns, you know, your first impressions of this game so far and what you guys think about it. Let's talk about Ashes of Creation. I definitely want to get some great discussions going, and, you know, what you guys think, and, you know, what things you guys are excited to see. I cannot wait to hear from all of you guys, and I cannot wait for this Alpha 2 to come out. So thank you so much for watching, guys and girls, and I hope you guys all have a great day. Take it easy.